pressure head. So pressure head here, if you are taking theta as the inclination, I think y1 cos theta plus z1 plus v1 square by 2g. And here v1 square by 2g, we are getting alpha kinetic energy correction factor. And similarly here alpha v2 square by 2g. So between sections 1 and 2, if you take at any section, then it will be, as you can see, the gradual variation of flow from y1 to y2. Since there is a difference in the depth of the flow, but there is a difference in the depth of the flow means it's a gradually varied flow. So we have seen the uniform flow, non-uniform flow can be of two types. One is gradually varied flow, another one is rapidly varied flow. So gradually varied flow, the depth is gradually varying over the length of the channel. So between sections 1 and 2, if you are taking delta x is the distance, but if theta is very small, suppose for a longer length, if theta is considered small, then y1 cos theta can be taken as y1 when theta is very small. Since that this longitudinal slope is very small, then we can take y1 cos theta as y. So here you can see z is equal to y1 cos theta, sorry, h1 is equal to z1 plus y1 cos theta plus alpha 1 v1 square by 2g. Similarly, h2 it's at section 2, which is z2 plus y2 cos theta plus v2 square alpha 2 v2 square by 2g. And here if you take these two terms, z plus y cos theta, that is this datum head plus pressure head together is called elevation of your hydraulic gradient line. I think already we have studied hydraulic gradient line and total energy line. Hydraulic gradient line is the line which connects the summation of your pressure head and the datum head. Total energy line is the summation of all the heads, the pressure head, datum head and velocity head. So here you can see the hydraulic gradient line, and that elevation represents the hydraulic gradient line elevation above the datum. So since theta is very small, we can take zh is equal to z plus y plus alpha v square by 2g. If it is section 1 is alpha 1 is different, section 2 alpha 2 is different, then you can take alpha 1, alpha 2. This is what is the energy equation. And if you are taking most of the channels, theta is less than 10 degrees. Okay, take most of the channels, theta is less than 10 degrees, and we can neglect the cos theta. And since the slope is negligibly small, suppose if h1 due to energy losses, there will be energy loss between section 1 and 2. h1 will always be higher, h2 will be lower because of frictional losses. Obviously, if there is a surface friction, sorry, bed surface roughness, then there will be a frictional losses on the sides. Then because of that, your h2 will be lesser than that of h1. Then in that case, your h1 minus h2 will be equivalent to your head loss. Am I right? Your h1 minus h2 will be equivalent to head loss. So what will happen is, suppose your HF, this most of the time this losses may be a friction loss, and or your right here. Screen is visible or not? I'm writing something else. It's something else I'm writing. வீடியோ போடல மேம், வீடியோ போடல. இல்லை 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 இல்லை, ஸ்லைட் இதில் தானே வருது. இல்லை கேமரா நான் யூஸ் பண்ணல, வீடியோ போடல, ஆடியோ மட்டுமே. Will you be able to see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, actually, I've been discussing with energy equation about gradual varied flow, in which the I'm having I don't know, some problem with the system. I'm unable to write it on the board. Anyway, we'll go to the presentation, then we'll come back later. So here, as I told you, there are two flows: gradually varied flow and rapidly varied flow. In gradually varied flow, the depth of the flow varies gradually over the length of the channel. In rapidly varied flow, the depth of the flow varies rapidly over the length of the channel. So you can see hydraulic jump is one such example for your rapidly varied flow. Hydraulic jump, you can see it is formed on a spillway. So this, what do you mean by a spillway? What do you mean by a spillway? What do you mean by a spillway? Have you heard of the term spillway? Spillway is the structure which is constructed along with the dam, mainly for withdrawing or for discharging the excess flow during the flood times. So the height of the flood of the spillway, which will be much lower than the top level of the dam. So the excess water is very well discharged over the through the spillway. So when the excess water is coming, it will be discharged through the spillways. Okay. So the spillway, when you are releasing the water, it may be it will be again a gate operated system, and the water excess, so flood water will be discharged or released over the spillway. You can see one such the hydraulic jump. This is called your hydraulic jump. You can see the hydraulic jump which is formed on the downstream side of the spillway. This is the upstream side of the dam. This is the downstream side of the spillway. And similarly, the hydraulic jump will be formed on the dam itself. When there is a shutters which are suddenly opened, then there will be a formation of hydraulic jump. Okay. This is there are examples for spillway as well as for the dam. Then what are these characteristics of this rapidly varied flow? If you are talking about rapidly varied flow, this will be occurring over a small reach. In the sense, the length of the channel will be very much less. So over a short length of channel, it happens. And hence, the frictional force is very much small compared to other forces. So compared to other forces, frictional forces may be neglected because it is occurring over a short length of the channel. And the velocity coefficient alpha and the momentum correction factors beta, alpha and beta, we have seen kinetic energy correction, momentum correction factor, which will be greater than unity and very difficult to ascertain in case of rapidly varied flow. And the flow pattern and the velocity distribution is also complicated. Unlike your gradually varied flow, here the flow pattern and the velocity distribution is highly complicated. And the hydraulic jump is also called standing wave. You can see the wave like this. This is also called a standing wave. So it is a local, you can say that define the hydraulic jump as a non-uniform flow phenomenon, which is resulting from the change in flow from supercritical to subcritical. So when the flow changes from supercritical flow to subcritical flow, then you have the formation of hydraulic jump. This is the sluice gate. Here is our subcritical flow. Here is our supercritical flow. So when the flow is changing from subcritical to, and you can see the wake formation on the during the hydraulic jump. Because of this, there will be a lot of whirls will be produced here. So yeah, depth of the water is high, depth of the water is very much low in case of subcritical flow. And again, supercritical flow is again changing into subcritical flow. So here there are two depths like Y1 and Y2. So here the hydraulic jump will be having a discontinuity in the surface by a steep upward slope. You can see a steep upward slope of the profile, which is accompanied by lot of turbulence and eddies. These eddies are actually responsible for the energy loss. And the depth which is after the jump is slightly less than the corresponding alternate depth. Okay, so this compared to this depth is comparatively less. But though the energy remains same, but this depth is comparatively less compared to this depth. Okay, so the depth before and after the hydraulic jump, this D1 and D2. Let us take this is D1, this is D2. Both the depths are called conjugate depths or sequent depths. Conjugate depths or sequent depths. Okay, and otherwise called alternate depths. Both are same name, alternate depth, conjugate depths or sequent depths. And you can see the specific energy and the specific force curves for the hydraulic jump. How the specific energy? What do you mean by a specific energy actually? When you are considering this datum head as 0, whatever you are having is nothing but your specific energy. Okay, so which means that you'll be having Y1 alone will be there in the specific energy. So like Y1 is nothing but your hydraulic gradient or even Z1 plus H1. Z1, or you can say Z1 plus H1 is the pressure head of a water at a cross section 1. So that is going to be your Y1. And Y2, Y1, Y2 are the alternate depths. You can see Y1, Y2 are alternate depths. And whatever this YC is nothing but your critical depth. You can see the hydraulic jump phenomenon here. Here is your initial depth, Y1. This Y2 is your final depth. So this Y1 is nothing but you can see here. This is going to be your y1. During the flow is this time the flow is critical. Here the flow is critical. This is y1 and this is your y2. Okay, this is y1 and this is your y2, and you can see the critical flow phenomenon is somewhere here, the yc. Yc is the critical depth. So yc is greater than y1 but less than y2. So the yc is the critical depth of flow, y1 is initial depth of the flow, y2 is alternate depth for the same energy. Okay. And where we are actually using this hydraulic jump is practical application. It's mainly used as an energy dissipator. So when you want to dissipate the energy, excess energy on the downstream side, we normally have these kinds of spillways and sluice gates. Also, the other reasons are chemical mixing, then aeration of your streams, which is polluted by biodegradable waste, and raising the water level in the channel for irrigation. Then you can go for desalination of seawater, then the efficient operation of measurement, flow measurement flumes. These are the various applications upon which the hydraulic jump is very much useful. And how we can classify the hydraulic jump? We can classify the hydraulic jumps based on the Froude number. So the Froude number is nothing but, what do you mean by Froude number? Already we have seen now. Inertia force by viscous force, inertia force by gravity force. What is that Froude number actually? Froude number is inertia force by V1. What is the Froude number? Gravity force. V by square root of GD. V by square root of GD is nothing but GD is nothing but your D is the depth of flow. G is the acceleration due to gravity, V is the velocity of flow. So Froude number is equal to V by square root of GD. GD is the depth. In some books you can see instead of D they should have used Y. Again, Y is also represents the depth of flow. So classification of hydraulic jump is based upon the Froude number. The Froude number, when it is varying from 1 to 1.7, it is called as undular jump, and when it is varying from 1.7 to 2.5, it is called weak jump, and it is from 2.5 to 4.5, it is called oscillating jump. Then 4.5 to 9, it is called a steady jump, and more than 9, it is strong jump. So you can see the variation of those things. So you can see 1 and 2, the section. See, there is a undulations or variations in the flow. This is called undular jump. First one is undular jump. Example for undular jump. Then second number, where the Froude number is from 1.7 to 2.5, it is called weak jump. You can see the variation. There is a jump is there, but the jump is very weak and there is not much wake formations or vertices. These vertices are not that much formed, but still there is a jump. And you can see third one is for 2.5 to 4.5, in which oscillating jump. It is high, it's little higher than the weak jump, and you can see some establishment in the slope and the increase in the depth also you can see of y1, y2. And fourth one is your steady jump. In the steady jump, the depth is very much low, and you can see the much higher corrugations on the top surface or the free surface. And the last one is strong jump. In case of strong jump, you will be having the complete vertex formations and corrugations on the vertex formations, as well as your formation of vertices on the inside the jump also. You can see the flow direction of different direction because you are unable to predict the flow direction. So the flow can be in any direction. So turbulent wake formations will be there on the surface as well as inner surface. But in other cases, it is not there. You can see only on the top surface you have seen the wake formations. Inner surfaces is not that much. So when it is a strong jump, you will have the complete turbulence below and above, or along the cross section of the entire flow. You can see the complete turbulence as well as the wake formation. That is your strong jump. That is called your strong jump. Okay, when the Froude number is more than 9, then you can classify that one as a strong jump. And if you see the surface profile of those jumps, you can see undular jump, a slight variation. There is no much difference in that slope. There is no slope at all. You can see the slope is not there, almost like a variation in the top surface. There is not strong slope. The slope of the surface is absent. So in case of weak jump, you can see a small jump with respect to the surface, but there is still some formation of wake formation on the surface. But again, oscillating jump, you can see the slow formation of slope on here, and in the steady jump, there is a wake formation which is happening here, and there is an increase in the depth also. But in the strong for jump, that variation of y1 and y2 is huge difference. The difference between y1 and y2 is huge, but there is a strong formation of the surface. You can see the surface strongly formed. Okay, this is about the classification of your jumps, hydraulic jump, and their profiles. Okay, then if you are saying a fruit number is less than 1, we can say jump is impossible. So less than 1 fruit number jump is impossible. But from 1 to 1.7 jump is possible because standing wave and angular jump. And you can have a y2 is 4 times of y2 law when the length of the channel is 4 times of y2. Okay, and the dissipation is very much low. You can expect the dissipation are less than 5%. Energy dissipation is very much low because it's a standing wave. Fruit number is 1 to 1.7, dissipation is low. And if it is 1.7 to 2.5, where you can see smooth surface rise with the small rollers. That small rollers are wake formations, and it is known as the weak jump, and where you can expect energy dissipation of 5 to 15%. And similarly, when the fruit number is 2.5 to 4.5, you can expect an unstable and oscillating jump. And in this case of jump, you can see a irregular pulsation. So you can see irregular pulsation creates a large wave. So large wave which travel from to the downstream for longer length, damaging both your earthen banks as well as the structures. So usually this unstable oscillating jump is not recommended for design conditions, and the dissipation is around 15 to 45%, because you can see the unstable oscillating jump how it is. You can see the oscillating jump, the third category. Sorry, here is your oscillating jump. Okay, so here is your oscillating jump. You can see, sorry, this is your oscillating jump. You can see oscillating jump. In case of oscillating jump, that is actually your the surface is very much damaged in case of oscillating jump. So oscillating jump is actually not recommended for the design conditions, and the dissipation is around only 15 to 45%. When the fruit number is 4.5 to 9, you can say a stable, well balanced, steady jump. So when it is 4.5 to 9, you can see a steady jump, and the performance is performance as well as the action is best. In whatever may be the downstream conditions, the performance of energy dissipation is more, and the dissipation is energy is 45 to 70%, and it is not actually affecting the downstream conditions or the earthen bed materials on the downstream side. So hence we can call it as a stable jump. And when the fruit number is more than 9, it is called somewhat rough. And you can say it is intermittent strong jump. But if you are considering the performance of the jump, the performance wise it is good, and you can have energy dissipation of 70 to 85% is the energy dissipation. Okay, so here you can see the tailwater depth. So the depth downstream of the hydraulic structure is called the tailwater depth. YT is the tailwater depth, and YA is the depth at the vena contracta. Vena contracta is when there is a gauge which is operated, and you can see this whatever the depth below, this is called your depth at vena contracta, and Y2 is sequent depth to your YA. YA is depth at here, and Y2 is the sequent depth, or otherwise called alternate depth. And the jump with YT equal to or less than Y2 is called your free jump. When there is a free jump is nothing but when this YT is a depth at vena contracta. So this or a tailwater depth, when YT is equal to or less than Y2. When YT is less than or equal to Y2, then it is called a free jump. When YT is equal to Y2, then a free jump will form at the vena contracta. Okay, when YT is nothing but your tailwater depth, when YT can be moving from YA to Y, here YA to Y2, YA to Y2, YA is at vena contracta, Y2 is sequent depth. Okay, so when YT is varying from free jump will be formed at vena contracta only when the YT will be equal to or less than Y2, then it is called a free jump. And similarly, there is a rippled jump. Rippled jump is when yt is less than y2. When yt is less than y2. So you can see yt is the tailwater depth. But here y2 is your alternate depth. So when yt, whatever the tailwater depth formed, when it is less than actual alternate depth, then the jump is rippled downstream of the vena contracta through a M3 curve or maybe H3. So there will be a curve. This curve is called your M3 mild slope. There are different slopes of curves. Mild slope, steep slope, horizontal, HMS. Okay, and varying conditions also 1, 2, 3 different regions. Anyway, that we will discuss what are these profiles, surface profiles that we will be discussing. So now you just remember M3 is the mild slope and then zone 3, that is called M3. M3 is there are two lines actually, critical depth line, normal depth line, and the profile above critical depth line, between critical and normal, and below the critical. So there are three profiles, 1, 2, 3 zones. So based on that, we are classifying mild slope as M1, M2, M3, S1, S2, S3, H1, H2, H3. C1, C2, when both normal depth line and critical depth line are one and the same, then it is called a critical depth. Okay, then it is called C1, C2, C3. So that we will be seeing anyway later. Now you just see what is M3 is mild slope zone 3 curve. So here you can see the depth at the toe of the jump is larger than your YA. Okay, so such jump is called, this kind of jump is called your rippled jump. This type of jump is called a rippled jump. And there is another jump called submerged jump. When YT is the tailwater depth, which is no longer free, but gets drowned out. And this type of jump is called a submerged jump. The loss of energy in the submerged jump is smaller than that in the rippled jump. Okay, this is called your submerged jump because yt is greater than y2. Y2 is the alternate depth, but yt is your tailwater depth. So here in this case, your yt is higher than your y2. Okay, then this is called a submerged jump. Then conjugate depth, y1, y2, y1 and y2. Y1 and Y2 are called conjugate jump. So conjugate depth is, you can see, as I told you, Y1 and Y2 are the conjugate depth. So height of the jump is Y2 minus, height of the jump is usually called Y2 minus Y1. You can see here Y2 minus Y1 is somewhere here, I can show you. Okay. Y1, Y2. When you are difference between Y2 minus Y1, you can see alternate depth after the jump. This is before the jump, depth before the jump. So depth after the jump, depth before the jump. The difference between these two, Y2 minus Y1, is called your height of the jump. Okay. So you can see here the conjugate depth is your Y1, Y2 or alternate depth. You can say alternate depths or Y1, Y2. Height of the jump is Y2 minus Y1 and your length of the jump is between these. This is your length of the jump. This is your length of the jump. Between the distance between Y1 and Y2 is called your length of the jump or LJ. These are the variables which you need to assess for the jump, for the hydraulic jump. So length of the distance measured from the front face of the jump to the point of the surface immediately in the downstream side of Y2 you are measuring. Okay, that is called your length of the jump. Then how we are actually going to derive this conjugate depth? So what are the equation for the conjugate depth? Okay, so if you are seeing the equation for the conjugate depth, you can see the momentum equation for the jump is usually given by P1 minus P2. P1 is the actually the whatever is the if you are writing the momentum equation, this is the hydrostatic pressure. Hydrostatic pressure P1 on the section 1, P2 is after the jump, and Y1 is the depth, alternate depths Y1 and Y2. Okay, considering the slope is small, so you can say it's not equal to 0 and L is the length between Y1 and Y2. Okay. So this anyway, considering theta is small, theta is 0, so W sin theta, this weight will not have that much importance, so this can become 0 for a short reach of prismatic channel. And friction force is also neglected because it is only for a short length. So frictional force also neglected, only forces your hydrostatic pressure. What we have is P1 minus P2 is equal to here rho Q into the momentum equation, rho into mass density multiplied by your discharge rate of flow into V2 minus V1. V2 minus V1 is the rate of change of velocity. So rate of change of velocity is nothing but your, so rate of change of velocity is V2 minus V1 is going to be a change in the velocity V2 minus V1. Okay, so momentum is nothing but your area of cross section or continuity is nothing but your area of cross section into your velocity, but the momentum is mass of the fluid multiplied by your velocity. So if you are saying mass of fluid, the mass rate of fluid will be getting rho into Q will give you the mass of the fluid flowing per second multiplied by the velocity is V2 minus V1. So you are getting momentum on the right hand side. So mass of the fluid multiplied by the velocity of the fluid, you are getting the momentum here. So rho into Q into V2 minus V1. And how to express in terms of the sequent depth? How we are going to get the sequent depth? We are considering the unit width of the channel. Consider unit width of the channel. Okay, width of the channel is unity. Then the discharge per unit width is nothing but your Q is equal to actually A1 V1, considering only rectangular channel. This is a rectangular channel. So Q is equal to what is actually capital Q? A1 into V1. So V1 remains same, and instead of A1 you are taking Y1 is the depth of the channel multiplied by B1. So B1 you are taking 1 because you are considering unit width. Hence Y1 into 1. So your discharge per unit width is nothing but V1 into Y1 is equal to V2 into Y2 because discharge remains same at both the sections 1 and 2. Hence V1 Y1 is equal to V2 Y2. Now what is your P? So the force will be pressure will be your weight density. Weight density is gamma multiplied by A1 into your x1 bar. So what is your A1 into x1 bar? Gamma into A1 is nothing but y unit width. So 1 into y1 into x1 bar is nothing but your y1 by 2 because this is taken as your rectangular variation. So you will be taking your y1 by 2 is the, sorry, this will be acting at the center of this depth, y1 by 2. Center of centroid is this, actually the force is, pressure is acting here. So what you can have here is y1 by 2. Similarly, this will be half into gamma into y1 square. If you multiply this, half into gamma into y1 square. So this is equivalent to, and this is for section 1. Similarly, for section 2, this is gamma A2 into x2 bar, and that will be equal to 1 by 2 into gamma into y2 square. Okay. Now substitute the values of y1 and p1 and p2. So half gamma y1 square minus half gamma y2 square is equal to rho into small q into v2 minus v1. Okay. So from continuity equation, you know small q is y1 v1 is equal to v2 y2. So substitute for v1 v2, and what you will be getting is 1 by 2 into rho g. So rho g is nothing but gamma. Gamma is written in terms of rho g into y1 minus y1 square minus y2 square on the left hand side, and on the right hand side you have rho into q into v2 by v1 v2 you are writing in terms of q. So q by y1, q by y2. So you are writing in terms of discharge per unit width. Please always remember this discharge per unit width. And this will be taking out g by 2 into y1 plus y2 into y1 minus y2. Then on the right hand side you have q square, and you are taking the rho gets cancelled. You will be having q out. Then you will be having q square into y1 minus y2 divided by y1 y2. Now this will be a quadratic equation. Then multiply 2q square by g is equal to y1 into y2 into y1 plus y2. Okay. So now what we'll be having is, this is this equation is like this. Now we are dividing both the sides by y1. If I am dividing by y1, then I will be getting y2 square plus y1 y2 minus 2q square by gy1 equal to 0. This is the quadratic equation in y2, and you can solve for y1 minus b plus or minus square root of b square minus 4ac divided by 2a. So ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So abc is known. then the roots of the equation is y2. So if you are solving for y2, you'll be getting y2 is equal to minus b. Minus b is here y1 minus y1 plus or minus square root of b is y1 square minus plus or minus minus of minus plus 4 a is nothing but 2q square by g y1 into C, sorry, this is C, A is 1. So 4 into only this term, because already here y2 square, the coefficient is 1. So hence it is 1 divided by 2a, 2 into a, coefficient of y2 is 1, hence only 2. So there is no possibility of having the negative roots. So we will be taking only positive root, minus 1 minus y1 by 2 plus square root of this. And this relation is nothing but your conjugate depth, relation between y1 y2. So if you know y1 and q, you can find what is your y2. So this is the best, the important relation for conjugate depth or alternate depth. So once if I know what is my discharge per unit weight and what is my y1, and I'll be able to find out what is my conjugate depth on the downstream. Okay, so this is the important expression, this is the important relation also. You please remember, the most important derivation for hydraulic jump, especially for a uniform flow. This is what we are considering, this is only for the uniform flow. What we are talking is only for the uniform flow. Okay, sorry, no, it's a uniform, non-uniform flow, but it's a kind of a, because hydraulic jump we are considering, this is for a rectangular channel, non-uniform flow but rapidly varied flow. It is a rectangle, for rectangular channel only we are considering. We are not considering for trapezoidal channel, because we are considering the unit width of the channel we are taken, and hence this holds good only for rectangular channels. For rectangular channels, rapidly varied flow is the phenomenon, and here we have the relationship for the conjugate depth. So once if I know what is my y1 and q, I'll be able to find out what is my y2. Okay, and hence the equation conjugate depth in terms of root number, you know what is your q. Q is nothing but y1 v1, and you can substitute q here, y1 v1 square divided by g into y1 minus y1 by 2, hence your y, this becomes you are taking this y1 square by 2 out, 1 plus 8 v1 square by g into y1. But what is the root number? I told you f is equal to v1 by square root of gy1, right? So if I am squaring on both the sides, then f square is equal to v square divided by gy. Now this is like v1 square by gy1, this is nothing but your fe square. So I can substitute for squared root number here. Then y2 is equal to minus y1 by 2, I am taking common here. Then minus 1 plus square root of 1, because y1 by 2 as common outside. Here we are taking, this is also common out, and minus y1 by 2. So we are taking common both for both these two things. Then you'll be taking y1 by 2 as the common, into this minus 1 will be here, plus square root of this inner coefficient, inner components. What are the inner components here? 1 plus 8 into f square. Okay, so this is conjugate depth in terms of root number. If I know the root number, directly I can get the conjugate depth. Instead of discharge per unit weight, small q, if I know my root number, then I'll be able to find out what is my alternate depth. So similarly for y1 is equal to minus y2 by 2 into square root of y2 square by 2 plus 2q square by gy into y2. Similarly for y1 equals, you can write in terms of y2. So if I know y1, I will be able to write in terms of y2, and this equation is known as Belanger momentum equation. Okay, so this is the most important equations for hydraulic jump for a rectangular channel. Remember please, this is for a rectangular channel, hydraulic jump for computation of conjugate depth of or alternatives given the discharge of the channel. If you know the discharge, then considering the unit width of the channel, you can find out what is the depth or conjugate depth. Okay, so once if we know this is, after this you need to find out what is the length of the jump, and once if you know h2 minus h1, you can take h2 minus h1 is your height of the jump. Okay, h1, sorry, y1 minus y2 is height of the jump, or y2 minus y1 is the height of the jump, and length of the jump is usually 5 times the height of the jump is usual. There is thumb rule for length of the jump. 5 times is usually the height of the jump is length of the jump. And anyway, we'll see there are formula also for predicting the length of the jump that we'll see anyway in the next class. So I'm closing here. Any doubts in hydraulic jump? When the flow changes from supercritical flow to subcritical flow, I can show you the hydraulic jump is formed when the flow is varying from supercritical to subcritical. Earlier it is subcritical, then it is comes to supercritical and then subcritical. Okay, that is what hydraulic jump. In the supercritical flow, Froude number is greater than 1. In the subcritical flow, Froude number is less than 1. So supercritical flow to subcritical flow is the hydraulic jump, in which Froude number is greater than 1 and the Froude number is less than 1. This is the condition for hydraulic jump. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll close here. We'll see the next class. Thank you.